There are three types of people in this world: the wolf, the sheep, and the sheepdog. The wolf is violent, the sheep is passive, and the sheepdog is there to protect one from the other. My guest today, Army Green Beret and UFC ranked middleweight fighter Tim Kennedy, talks with us about how to overcome fear, how to get up and learn from losses, how to recognize strengths and weaknesses, and how to become the sheepdog.
You're a man of action. You live life to the fullest, embrace your fears, and boldly chart your own path. When life knocks you down, you get back up one more time, every time. You are not easily deterred or defeated. Rugged, resilient, strong. This is your life. This is who you are. This is who you will become. At the end of the day, and after all is said and done, you can call yourself a man.
Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler, and I am the host and the founder of Order of Man. Now, whether you've been listening to us since the beginning or you've just stumbled across us, you guys are listening to the manliest show available. We're all about teaching you how to become a better man, a better protector, better provider, and a better presider, a leader over yourself, your family, your business, your community, every area of life that is important to you. So each and every week, we bring you the world's smartest, the toughest, the successful, the most talented men on the planet. We extract their hard-fought wisdom, and then we share it with you guys. And of course, today's show is no different. We've got an Army Green Beret, UFC-ranked middleweight fighter, Tim Kennedy, on the show, and we're talking about becoming the sheepdog. Guys, I can say that this is probably, if not the best show to date. So before I introduce you to him and get into the show, I do want to let you know that you can get the show notes for this show at orderofman.com/094. And then also make sure, if you have not done this already, that you join our Facebook group. I think we're almost at 15,000 men now. And we are having some great discussions about what it means to be a man and how you can be a better one. So you can do that at facebook.com/groups/orderofman. And third, and this is the big one, if you have not already done so, check out our elite mastermind, the Iron Council. This is a group of men who are working every single day on becoming that protector and that provider and that presider that I was telling you about. I'm going to give you some more details during the break, but I just want you to know the Iron Council is all about giving you guidance, the tools, the direction, the resources, everything that you need to achieve at high levels. And you can learn more at orderofman.com/Iron Council. Now, I want to introduce you to my guest today. His name is Tim Kennedy, and I'm sure you're already familiar with him and his work. This is a man I've been following for a long time, and someone that I hold in extremely high regard because of the way that this gentleman shows up in the world and how he approaches his life. And not to mention, Tim is arguably one of the baddest men on the planet. This guy is an Army Green Beret. He's a UFC middleweight MMA fighter, and he's one of only a few who fight professionally and also serve in the armed forces simultaneously. So what's great about this show is Tim's approach to being a sheepdog, which, if you've been following us for any amount of time, know that being a protector, and I've mentioned this already twice in the show, is one of the core tenets of being a man. And I'm not sure that there's anybody out there better than Tim Kennedy to talk with us about this. He's been serving this nation as a warrior for 14 years. He's been fighting for 16 years. He's earned a Bronze Star for valor. But Tim and I get real about his current UFC loss, what his father taught him about being a man and a sheepdog, how he faces his own fear, and the formula for being the man others will at some point rely on us to be. Tim, what's going on, brother? Thanks for joining me on the show today.
It is my privilege. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been following you for some time. Excited to have this conversation. I know with your fight schedule and things like that, and obviously you're a busy man, we've had a little bit of a difficult time getting together, but today's the day, and excited to talk with you and this whole notion and idea and concept of what it means to be a sheepdog. And I want to ask you first and foremost, just so we can get some context for the conversation today, when you talk about being a sheepdog, what does that mean? What does that look like, and why that term?
Yeah, so the term is a coined phrase by a beautiful, brilliant author, a friend that has very generously let other people use it as long as they kind of stay within the theme of what it is. It's this idea that there's three groups of people. There's the sheep, there's the wolves, and then there's the sheepdog. The sheep just live their life. People wanting to do what they do. There's nothing wrong with being a sheep. It's a fantastic thing. Your blissful existence. Sure. You eat grass. You make little sheep. And you relax in the sun, maybe you lay down occasionally in the grass. Yeah, it's a pretty good way to live. And then you get the wolves. They prey in every way on the sheep. Whether that's in real terms, economically, sexually, physically, radical fanatics. There's a lot of different ways that sheeps can exist and can hurt the wolves.
Right.
And then lastly is the sheepdog. And that is that's the creature that genetically is more similar to the wolf than the sheep. It has canines. It eats meat. That's what it has instinctually all the predatory desires that the wolf does. The difference is the sheep trust the sheepdog, and the sheepdog loves the wolf, and it appreciates it, and it protects it, most importantly. So when the wolf comes around and wants to take advantage, hurt, kill, eat the sheepdog is there to protect. And that kind of little parallel that hopefully is accurate to the people that we train, that what we aspire to be is the sheepdog. It's something that is prepared both physically and mentally to be in a fight with the most vicious creature that wants to hurt what we love. So in human terms, the sheepdog is the first responder. It's the guy that takes care of his family. It's the person that is not going to stand by and watch bad things happen, let evil triumph. It's the guy that wears green, the uniform, military. It's the firefighter. It's the ambulance. It's the traffic guard. Sometimes it's the person at the PTA meeting. There's a lot of different ways that you can fill that role and be a productive member that can contribute and take care of the sheep. For me, that's going to be a gun carrying, terrorist killing, poaching, imprisoning, human trafficking, murdering, barrel-chested, freedom-fighting American. That is not necessarily the way it has to be for everybody else. There's lots of sheepdogs out there that never will carry a gun and never want to touch a gun, but they are prepared in a heartbeat to take care of their kids, that are ready to take a tourniquet and throw it on somebody's leg or slap an IV into somebody. So we really try to instill both the instinctual desire to be a sheepdog and then how prepared you are to actually act on that once that moment comes where you really need to do something to protect the flock. Right.
Is this something that you turn on and off, or are you always kind of a sheepdog or a sheep or a wolf?
That's a complicated philosophical question even. My brother, who is an EOD narcotics deputy here in California, he and I just had this conversation. I was like, man, because he's dealing with cartel guys and people smuggling
right
stuff into the valley and trying to get it to the coast up from Mexico, and the similarities between that dirtbag and the terrorist dirtbag or the gun smuggling dirtbag or the human trafficking dirtbag, they're like culturally different, but they're very, very, very similar in how they act and what they do and the nastiness that of evil that exists in their life. So to answer a part of your question, like if you are a wolf, are you just a wolf?
Right.
And I think that more often than not is the case. I think sheep can do all sorts of things. They can transform, like metamorphosis of becoming more sheepdog-like, or maybe even lose their way and become wolf, and like lead other lambs to the slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
But a sheepdog, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? You pull back the curtain and you see behind the smoke and the mirrors, and you see the wizard back there, right? And it's this frail old man that's just kind of pulling the strings.
Right.
And once you see what that wolf really looks like, and that's not this big, tough, muscly, tattooed prison felon that's carrying an AK.
The image we always have, right?
Right, yeah. It's a slimy coward that is too impotent and pathetic to do anything else productive and constructive in their life, and they then resorted to this. You see that, and you're like, no. I'm not going to let that affect my family. I'm not going to be a victim, or maybe something bad has happened, and then you finally bravely, courageously enough step up and you say, no, never again. I'm going to make changes necessary to ensure that my family will never have somebody break into my home again.
Right.
Will never mug me, will never carjack me, will never hurt my wife, will never scare my kids. And then I think from that point on, you're kind of always, it's not something you turn on or off. You just are a sheepdog.
Sure. Yeah. And then you just behave and respond accordingly, depending on the situation, it sounds. Have you always been and considered yourself a sheepdog, even though you may not have used that term when you were younger? Is this something that you've always been, or is this something you've developed personally over your lifetime?
Man, I was raised this way. My dad was a narcotics officer. I mean, there were times when I was like 8, my brother was 10, would pull into a parking garage. He's like, oh, hey, go up one floor, and there's a blue Corvette up there. And you need to get me the license plate and tell me if there's anything inside.
Really?
This is an 8-year-old. Yeah.
Really?
So
That's
like,
awesome.
This was very normal to me, and we're at the shopping mall, and we're in the parking lot, and we see a guy hit a girl, and my dad just very calmly unbuckles himself, says, stay in the car. gets out, puts the guy up against the back of the car and puts cuffs on him. So like those are memories that formed kind of who I was as a kid, like prepubescent stuff, like watching my heroic, brave father do the right thing, understand what just is, what right and wrong is, and not let something ever happen in front of us or him that was unjust, and just let it happen.
Yeah. And is this where your desire to then join the military came from? Is this desire to fulfill maybe this idea and this vision that you had of your father and how he raised you guys?
Yeah, you know what's funny? I hate the term sheepdog. I think it's corny, but it's so accurate that is what we use. But yes, I knew I wanted to do something. I didn't want to follow my father's footsteps. I went to the police academy, but my intent was to be like Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs.
Sure.
We had a serial killer in San Luis Obispo when I grew up. When I was in college, Rex Krebs, and he killed a handful of girls, a half a dozen or more. In really horrific, horrendous ways. And that's when I was a freshman or sophomore in college. And that really drove me to, that's also when like Silence of the Lambs was coming out. And I was like, no, I'm going to go find people like that. I mean, that is the real embodiment of evil. That guy that can prey on the weak and the innocent and then take them and hurt them sexually and physically and finally, ultimately kill them, and then derive pleasure from that, So I was like, no, I'm going to find people like that. That's what I wanted to do.
Is this what you're talking about now? I'm maybe just jumping to the conclusions here is, so the reason maybe you didn't join the FBI or go that route is because you wanted to actively pursue this. Am I understand that correctly?
No, I was going to school to then go to the FBI, and I was a second year grad student when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And that changed. It's not an existential moment, but it's a clear perspective of a different kind of evil, an evil that I think most Americans were unaware of. We knew about terrorism. We saw from Gulf Storm 1 the things that Saddam did. We knew that radical Islam, but that's way over there in that Middle East in the sand area. That's not something that's going to affect us or our lives. But,
right. It's not personal. It's not intimate at this point.
Yeah. Serial killers, though, we had Charlie Manson, we had Davis, and, we had, oh my goodness, like we really need to take care of this. So that seemed much more real, at your doorstep type thing until you watch those towers fall, until you saw Americans jumping out of windows to plummet to their death because their options were burn alive, suffocate, or fall.
Right. I mean, what must have been going through their mind and actually physically to make that decision, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It just made my blood boil. I watched the second, like most people did. I watched that second building fall live, and seen the planes crash and into the Pentagon, and then in the fields where we find out it was just a few Americans on a plane that said, "No, I know what's happened to these other planes, and it's not going to happen to this one," and it crashes into a field, maybe ultimately saving the White House.
Right.
So we learned a new version of courage. We learned what a new version of a hero could be like. And we also found a new villain, and one that to this day is probably the most prevalent and perhaps most dangerous.
I guess what is the difference between somebody who looks at an event like this or another event that might be similar and tuck tails and runs versus steps up to the plate and actually does something about it like you have?
I think everybody has that fight, flight, or freeze thing in them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that's always going to be the same. I don't think that somebody that freezes in a situation will always freeze. Somebody that runs from a situation will always run, or somebody that runs towards gunfire will always run towards gunfire. I definitely, unfortunately, am one of those people that I'm going to always run towards gunfire. There's that is the only option for me. If I'm a 14-year-old kid and I watch somebody push my 12-year-old sister, I'm going to end up in the principal's office with bloody knuckles, because that's just how it works.
Yeah. Tim, how do you overcome this sense of fear? Because I'm going to assume that the fear is still there. It still resides within you. How do you personally overcome it?
Everybody has fear. There's no way to get rid of fear. And anybody that says that they're not scared is a liar or a psychopath.
Right.
Or sociopath. Every guy I've ever served with, everybody that's ever jumped out of a plane, anybody that's walked into the octagon to fight, anybody that's been shot at, they're scared. They're scared to get hit in the face. They're scared that their parachute won't open. They're scared that they're going to die, or they're going to be be permanently dismembered, or, they're going to get blown up. For me, it's always knowing that the push is worth the squeeze, that I'm doing the right thing. And if I die doing the right thing, if I get hurt doing the right thing, that is the best and only way for maybe me and in my life to exist, to live. I can't live with myself by not doing the right thing. So I can either live in regret of letting something bad happen, or I can live with my head held high, an example to my children, a proud husband to my wife, hopefully a heroic son to my father, and all the things that I can be proud of who I am, because I never turned a blind eye towards the bad things that have happened or are happening.
How do you overcome a moment in your life or a situation in your life where you have either let yourself down or let others down? And then how do you overcome that and then keep driving forward and start making the right decisions moving forward?
I can't count the mistakes I've made, the fights that I've lost, the shots that I've missed. But the thing that defines us is our desire and our choice to then improve and get back up. Right? So you fail, you get knocked down, you lose a fight. What do you do after that moment? I think that's really who defines us. Are you going to get back up? Are you going to get better and stronger? Are you going to improve? Are you going to shift and go around the problem intelligently? Instead of being a hard ranger, be a smart ranger. That, for me, I think really will then put on display who and what that man is.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a perfect example. I mean, I watched your last UFC fight, and the way that you responded to that was, well, that sucks. And I'm assuming, not having a necessarily a personal connection with you, that you just go back to the drawing board and you just get back to what you need to get back to, and you learn, you adapt from it. How did you handle that last fight?
Oh, it was like a horrible fight. I did everything wrong that night. I had a fight camp that went too long, and a body that was broken down, a hamstring that tore in the first round, and then stood there as a punching bag for the next 2.5 rounds. Not only do you just go back to the drawing boards, I think you have to take a step back and reevaluate everything that I did. For me, it's me taking a step back and looking, okay, how many different ways did I go wrong here? Was it the choice just to postpone the fight instead of just canceling it in general? So was that a strategic failure on my part? In the training department, what could I have, as a 37-year-old man, been able to add an additional 5 weeks onto what was already a 2.5 month long fight camp?
Right.
Some of those are strategic decisions, and some of them are just understanding the assets and liabilities of me as a human, what I'm capable of. Ultimately, I made the wrong decisions. I shouldn't have extended my fight camp for another 5 weeks. Maybe I could have done that when I was 25.
Sure.
But not 37. And when you're actually fighting, and it's as if you're looking at yourself from a third person perspective, and you're moving like in a nightmare, as if you're like moving in slow motion, like you're crawling through mud or water, like why is everything else around me is happening faster? It's almost like what that night was like. So it's clear, crystal clear, how in different ways I messed up. And for me, it's just going to be about getting better, whether or not I ever even fight again. I am going to be better, bigger. I am going to be faster, and I'm going to be stronger than I was that night.
Man, the new year is finally upon us. I'll be frank with you here, guys. I am not a New Year's resolutions guy. I don't need a new year to give me permission to start working on the objectives I've identified in life. The objectives I've already identified. A lot of you are probably the same way. I know the men inside the Iron Council, our elite mastermind, feel the same way as you. Regardless of how you feel about resolutions, whether you wait until January 1st to start or you're thinking about them year-round, we have got the tools, guys, inside the Iron Council to help you succeed and accomplish big things in your life. We're going to help you identify objectives in 4 key domains of your life, the tactics that are going to ensure you achieve them, the system for tracking to make sure you stay on point, and the accountability you need to stay the course. You can learn more at orderofman.com/Iron Council. All of us inside of the Iron Council hope to see you there. Now, let's get back to my interview with Tim. Yeah, I mean, I love this approach, and this actually leads me into one of the discussions that I wanted to have with you today, which is, and I don't know necessarily what you call this, but you talk about these 4 words, which is awareness, assessment, action, analysis. And I think what you're talking about now is analysis, and maybe we're working backwards into this, but I'd love to talk about this because I think there's a lot of men out there who don't really understand these 4 components, not just in their daily life, but even if they're facing a threat or in a fight like you've been, whatever it may be. So I want to talk about each of these areas. When you talk about awareness, I mean, how does somebody become even more aware? I think a lot of the times we get placed in these boxes, whether we've created the box or society's created it for us, and it's hard for us to become aware of this box. How do you suggest somebody actually do that?
Man, that first A, the aware. So, those 4 A's are like kind of the pillar, the tenets of the things that we try to impart on somebody that wants to be a better sheepdog. The first is aware. And it's not just aware of your surroundings. It's also aware of yourself. Like this is like Sun Tzu, Art of War stuff. Like know yourself, understand what assets and liabilities you have. Let's just be honest about me for a second. Okay, I'm 37. I had knee surgery on my right leg. I have a little bit of bicep tendonitis of my left arm. Right, I've been a fighter for 16 years. I've been in special forces for 14 years. I don't know how many airplanes I've jumped out of. I don't know how many gunfights I've been in. I don't know how many deployments I've been on. So what kind of wear and tear do we have on me physically? Let's talk about my brain. Like how many fights have I been on? How many training sessions, sparring sessions? What level of TBI, CTE do I have from being blown up, having grenades go off, using flashbangs, being in shoot houses, breathing in lead? Okay, I don't know. But I really do my best to understand all of those things about myself. Then let's talk about assets. I'm strong. I'm fast, very intelligent, very well educated, multilingual. I have pretty good shot, decent fighter, decent grappler. So like I know a lot about myself. I know what my capabilities are. I know how long I can run flat out. Like I know that last night my son has a cough and he didn't sleep for 2.5 hours, and I was up rocking him. I was walking. I realized that mentally I'm a little bit more diminished today than I was yesterday morning. Right. So that is an ongoing assessment of awareness of who you are and how capable you are. And then there's that is just in looking at you internally. And then is the external perspective of what biometrically, atmospherically is happening around us, where I am, why I'm there, who's around me, should they be there, what they're wearing, how they smell, how they're dressed, where their tattoos are, where their track marks on their arm are, if they're packing, how much money they have, where their shoes are, where their car is parked, where I parked, where their exit is, if I know where the bathroom is, where's the cook, where's the closest weapon, like all of that stuff. That is just a constant, ongoing situational awareness, right? That is a nonstop, forever going, leading into the assessment.
Before I get into the assessment, Tim, I want to talk with you about is this just a matter of practicing when you're out and about, when you're doing your thing, looking around, having this stuff? And then what is it that you actually should be prioritizing to be aware of? Because I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong here, so this is going to be enlightening for me, that there comes a point when maybe you're bombarded or overwhelmed with too much stuff. Is that even possible?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Depends on where you are. You kind of have to triage what kind of information. Let's just say you're a computer, right? And you're feeding yourself information. How efficient you are at taking that information and putting it and applying it where it needs to go. The more programs you have, the faster memory you have, the more you can do, right? So me, as a Green Beret, Special Forces sniper, a ranger, I can process a lot more information than somebody that's just learning how to do this. And I practice this. I rehearse this. Me and my friends, when we're sitting at lunch, we know, okay, who's sitting where and why they're sitting there, where we parked, why we parked there. So some of those things that you do habitually, then you don't have to worry about, you can shuffle that to the less important area of your brain and then be in the moment. So yeah, you're aware of yourself, but then you're looking at your surroundings. Like if I'm at a restaurant, what kind of restaurant am I at? What area of town am I in? Who should be there? If somebody came in that doesn't fit the stereotype of the people that should be, eating there or should be a patron of there, if they're acting weird, if there's weird biometrics between them and the rest of the people, and then they don't fit the atmospherics, that something's off, so then you kind of prioritize where you're in that awareness, where that amount of focus goes, and you get better at it. We sometimes, even my friends like Shane Steiner, will be sitting there and at lunch, in Austin, Texas, getting tacos, which is a great thing to do. And when we make assumptions, we're profiling people. We see somebody come in and with her boyfriend or husband, and then we realize that neither of them are wearing rings. Okay, gonna jump to a possibility that they're not married, the boyfriend, girlfriend. We're going to go off the biometrics of the distance that they're having from each other and the connectivity that they have and how they're interacting and how they're talking. Then we see that he didn't hold the door for her, that he didn't hold the chair for her. Now we're going to make another assumption about them. Then we're going to see some tattoos, so like you just get better at it the more that you do it. And the more that you do it, the better at it you get, the more efficient you are at doing it, and the more accurate you are. During the Sheepdog course, we take a little walk through some parking lots, whether it's like a Walmart. And I say, hey, I bet you there's a gun in there. And sometimes it's been fun. Like while we're walking through the parking lots, like a group of 20 people, because we break off into a few different groups and we go do different things with different instructors. I've had like people walk out and they're walking to their car. I'm like, hey man. And I just start talking to them, totally disarm them, as I'm interacting with them. It's like, and ultimately we end up, and I find out everything about that person.
Interesting.
And then the assumptions that I made about that person just off their vehicle in front of the whole entire class is right. They're like, oh, so this is what you do for a living. This is the area of town that you live in. This is the access code to get into your apartment complex. This is where your kids go to school. This is, all off of their car. And that, that's just awareness. And the more you do it, the better you are.
Right. Right.
It's frightening how good you can get at it.
No, it sounds like Jason Bourne type stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, they obviously Hollywood it up, but the purpose is just for awareness, right? You're going to know the best escape route. You're going to know the best place to go to get sanctuary. You're going to know the most worrisome threat in the room. Like you're going to know who can handle themselves. You're going to know where to get a gun. You're going to know where to get some drugs. You're going to know, you're going to know what the concerns are. Like these are things that you should know. If you're going to be truly consider yourself a sheepdog, you should probably at least be able to be aware of your surroundings and aware of yourself.
Well, and then I think the point of being aware of this is then to move into that next step, right? Which is, okay, now I have this information. What do I actually do with it? So talk to me about this assessment area that we're going to address here.
So you're not only assessing what you're going to do. So as you're aware, that awareness starts focusing on a singularity, one individual thing, that then you're assessing. Right. So we call that threat assessment.
Right.
So when I'm aware of everything, that's just a common normal state of being. Right. That's the homeostasis. That's like how things always are. And then when something comes in that doesn't fit, that concerns me, my focus goes from being aware, and it starts leaving things that are less important, like the cook and what he was talking about in Spanish in the kitchen, which ironically was where they're going to, buy their marijuana at. To the more important thing is this thing that just walked into the room.
Right.
And so now my assessment is I'm looking at that person as a threat. I'm assessing that person as a threat. And then the assessment is what I'm going to do, is what is the best course of action. If he does this, am I going to do this? Or am I going to even wait and let him dictate anything? Or am I just going to take the initiative and, get the drop on him and stand up and start moving as if I'm leaving, getting behind him. So if he does walk up to the counter, pull a gun and try to rob him, I'm ready to, come up from his six and put him on the ground.
So at this point, you're really just running through scenarios like what would happen if this? What would I do if this were to escalate or move here? How would I handle myself and respond to that situation? Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, that's a part of it. In the assessment, the threat assessment of an individual, and then back to you internally, what am I going to do? What is my course of action? We'll sometimes we talk about a decision making process. This like MDMP is a military decision making process, which has a lot of great things. You kind of create this mental matrix of if I not the if game of if I do that, then this will happen, but like more of violence is action and violence of action. Let's figure out what is the best course of action, the most likely course of action, and the worst course of action.
All right. Yeah, makes sense.
And then kind of being prepared. So what is the most likely thing that's going to happen? What is the best outcome of that? Or what is the worst outcome of that? And then understanding what the worst course of action is will then maybe change what I'm going to do in the most likely course of action or the best course of action.
This almost sounds like really similar to the OODA loop. Is that right? Like observe, orient, decide, act. Is that what we're looking at here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this makes sense. And then, okay, so now you've been aware, you've assessed the situation, you kind of know what's going on and think you have an idea. How do you get off of the fence? Because I think we all understand what act means, but I think there's a lot of people who would say, oh, I just hope this passes me by, or maybe I'll just plead ignorance, or I'll close my eyes and everything will go away. You know, I watch my 3-year-old daughter, and she'll cover her eyes and think because she covers her eyes, the thing's going to go away. And obviously it doesn't. How do you then, get the balls, I guess, for lack of a better term, to now take action and do something about this?
Being prepared and being trained. Period. That's it. There's not like this Freudian brilliant jump to you need to do this or you need to mentally prepare in this. You train for that moment. You train with calloused hands, sweat in your eyes, sand in your ass, hurting, bleeding, pain, so that when that moment comes, you're perfectly prepared for that moment.
And this is where your phrase, which I love, by the way, is that you become the hardest person somebody ever tries to kill, right?
Absolutely. When you are the hardest person somebody ever tries to kill, it doesn't matter what's going to happen, right? You're prepared for it. Not that you're hoping that it happens, even though sometimes I'm just like, come on, man, just give it a whirl. Just give it a try, because it would make me really happy because I'm totally prepared and you're not.
Right.
There's a degree of not pride, self-confidence that gives you a founded courage that is rooted in the training, right? The cornerstone of everything that you've done, from the awareness to the assessment, is because you've trained. And so when that moment to take action finally comes, you're 100% mentally and physically ready.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you're talking about this, because one of the questions I get all the time, every single day without fail, is how do I build more confidence? And I think you're answering the question right now, which is you train, you prepare, you do the thing that you're not confident about. That way, when the situation really matters, you have the ability, the desire, the courage to move forward, even though you might still be facing that fear.
Yeah, man, 100%. Yeah, and that goes to everything. Like the dad bods, the bodies, like the kind of 14, 18, 20% body fat guys, that have gotten lazy and just let themselves go. And then they end up at the beach with their kids and they're leaving their t-shirts on. Okay, I don't care what I look like. But there's a degree of confidence with me because I train so hard all the time. Like, I don't care. And I'm just there for my kids to have a good time. Like, yeah, shirt's coming off. I'm going to be throwing sand. I'm going to be throwing a football. I'm going to be jumping in the water. And I never even think about anything, any degree of self-consciousness. And that is like the most ethnocentric, narcissistic version of confidence, right? And then going all the way up to, I'm about to get in a gunfight with a guy that's about to rob someplace that me and my family are eating at. And I don't have a care or concern or worry because I know I'm totally prepared. And I have the confidence that I'm going to do the right thing. So, I mean, that's a huge spectrum. That is the diversity, the space, the void between those two things is vast. But ultimately, it comes down to self-confidence. And the thing that gives you that is training and being prepared.
Well, and I think from the outside looking in, I mean, obviously you've got a lot of this right, but I see it as, okay, Tim's actually adopted this as a lifestyle. Like, you're not going to train for 30 days or 90 days for a fight. Like, you're always ready to some degree for that fight. You're always ready. You're always prepared. You're always training. And it's not just, hey, let's do a quick 30-day or 60-day whatever so that we can go on the cruise or get into this fight or whatever it may be.
No, yeah, this is a lifestyle. It's a fulfilling, wonderful lifestyle. It's one that when you understand what hard work is, what individual responsibility means, the reward of calloused hands and sweat in your eyes, and that the benefit to your family, both financially and physically, is tenfold. Like that the reward on the far side of work is so much more satisfying than anything else you could ever get. It is permanently a lifestyle change. This is who you are, and that is who you always will be.
Let's talk about this last step, which is the analysis. I think this is what a lot of people miss, because I think there is a lot of people who would just take even blind action without being prepared or being aware or even assessing a situation. But one of the things that I think very few men actually do is now go back, whether it's a situation or their day or an experience, and actually analyze what happened, what didn't happen, how do I improve? So talk to me about what this looks like for you.
Yeah, the analysis is massive. It is how do you get better? Right? We started the conversation with, like, sometimes that is even who defines what a human is, what a man is what do you do after you've been knocked down? What do you do after you've failed? If you look at the greats, from the tech giants to the actors or even the Medal of Honor recipients, what you see reoccurring in all of them is there was failure after failure after failure. There was Babe Ruth striking out, hundreds of times, and then of course hitting hundreds of home runs.
Right.
Like that is the thing that most commonly defines who they are, is the fact that they went back and tried. And that even when they failed, they took a step back and they analyzed what they did wrong, and they came back better. The Hall of Fields. I don't want to use, fighting as example, but even us after 9/11, after Pearl Harbor, leading into Stalingrad, like we knew what we did wrong in battles, and we said, hell no, not going to happen again. This is how I'm going to get better. And it's from infantrymen's perspective, like the first thing they show you is always improve your fighting position. Well, your body is your fighting position. Then your home is your fighting position. And then your property is your fighting position. Your property, your place of work, your car, and that just keeps expanding. And how do you continually improve that? First, it's you as a person. How do you improve that? And that analysis thing is every time that you do something right, what did I do right so I can sustain it? And then looking for improves. Okay, what did I do wrong so I can do it better? And that is always happening.
Right. We talk about this all the time, and the term we use is the after action review, which is obviously a military term as well. So yeah, I'm completely on board with what you're saying. This makes a ton of sense right here.
If you don't do it, then you are like, what is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing, hoping for a different result.
Right.
Why would you ever do the same thing? Especially when that thing that you just did was failure. Why don't you step back and analyze yourself or your actions or your assessment or your awareness and say, man, this is what I should have done, or this is what I'm going to do to be more prepared for that moment.
Well, Tim, obviously we're scratching the surface on some of this stuff, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the things that you're doing, because I think the guys listening to this are going to want to know about this, and obviously we're going to be able to get deeper into this and some of the training that you're doing. Talk to me a little bit about some of maybe I know you've got some Sheepdog response training coming up. Talk to me about when that is, so we just can let the guys know and make that available for them.
For first responders, military, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, we do a military first responder law enforcement only class once a month. And then we do an open to civilian course once a quarter. The next one that we're doing is going to be at the end of January. It's going to be in Houston, Texas. Beautiful range, fantastic gym. We have some of the best instructors, we have the best instructors in the world that are going to be there. If you go to our website, sheepdogresponse.com, start reading the bios of the people that teach this course. From grandmaster shooters, IPSC, IDPA guys, to doctors that specialize in emergency medicine that were former special forces guys, Green Berets that then went to medical school during 9/11, then went to JSOC and then came back. Like, those are the people that teach for us.
Yeah.
Black belts in this, world champions in that. These are the people that are humbly putting themselves out there to create more sheepdogs because they believe in this idea. So end of January, if you go to our Facebook page, Sheepdog Response, you can reserve your slot. The next one is going to be in the Washington, D.C. area, and that will be in March. And then law enforcement, military ones, you can just go to the Facebook page or the website and look at different dates for where we're having the ones for law enforcement, military only.
Right on, yeah. And we'll make sure as we make this available that all the guys have the links on the show notes so they can check all this out and get registered if that's what they want to do. Tim, I've got to ask you a question as we wind down. And that question I did prep you a little bit for, and I think you've answered this question, but I want to make sure we wrap this up this way, is what does it mean to be a man?
It's different for a lot of different men. For me, it's what are you going to do when you fail? What are you going to do to improve who you are and what you did? How are you going to improve to provide for your family, to be a productive, contributing member of society? Like, those are what are you going to do? How are you going to get back up?
Yeah, powerful.
That's what
stuff.
defines a man.
Yeah, powerful stuff. And obviously something that you've been able to do. And I've seen you and some of the things that you're doing. And I appreciate that of you, watching you as somebody who I look up to, and want to emulate some of the things that you're doing. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that response. Also, you've got a couple other things I wanted to mention. You've got the season finale, right, of Hunting Hitler. We want to talk about that real quick. And then make sure you mention also the Sheepdog Survival Fund, because I think there's some guys listening that are going to be interested in knowing more about what that is.
So this coming Tuesday, January 3rd, we have the season finale of season 2 of Hunting Hitler. Back to the Sheepdog thing, not letting evil just exist. A bunch of nasty Nazis escaped the war. Dudes that did horrific, horrendous, horrible, unimaginable things.
Right.
Escaped to South America. We track those dudes down, and we go in the last episode to a place called Colonia Dignidad. Google it. It'll scare you to death. Don't Google it before you go to bed. It is frightening.
Really? Okay.
And it's current day. It's real world happening still today. Powerful Nazis worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And the season finale is next Tuesday on History Channel. It's pretty cool. The Sheepdog Survival Fund. So the Sheepdog Response, those are the courses that we teach. While we've been teaching those, we have found there's a void. There's soldiers, law enforcement officers, deputies that don't have the training and don't have the equipment that they need to do the job. We have guys showed up our course. It's a mid-range, mid-distance carbine course, and they're trying to shoot with iron sights because it's the only thing their department could afford. Mm-hmm. And that limits them to 300 meters. Like we said, mid-distance. This is, to me, that's like 400 or 500 meters.
Right.
You can't even see that far.
Right.
Guys that didn't even have tourniquets, that didn't even know how to put on a tourniquet. So we give those guys, whether it's a scholarship to attend one of our courses, or we just buy that department the equipment that they need. Every single cent goes towards doing that. We have nobody in the fund, in the nonprofit that gets paid. Nobody's writing checks to fly anywhere. Every cent goes to helping military, law enforcement, first responders.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure all of that stuff gets linked up so the guys can go check that out. Tim, I've got to tell you, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the show and imparting some of your wisdom. Also, I appreciate your service and how you show up. Obviously, I've followed you and watched what you do and try to live my life in some of the same manner that you do as well. And so I want to thank you again for coming on the show and sharing what you have to share with us today.
It was my privilege. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Ryan. Appreciate it.
There it is, man. Mr. Tim Kennedy sharing some of what it takes to be a sheepdog, something, again, we should all be striving to be more of in our lives. Obviously, we're just scratching the surface, so I do encourage you to check out what Tim is up to. Again, I just want to remind you about the Iron Council. This is our elite mastermind designed to get you to the next level in your relationships, your finance, your health, your fitness, your life. So join us now. Get the tools, the resources, the skills, the accountability you need to make the changes you want to make this year. You can learn more and sign up at orderofman.com/Iron Council. I'm going to look forward to talking with you on Friday for our Friday Field Notes, but until then, take action and become the man you were meant to be.
Thank you for listening to the Order of Man podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and be more of the man you were meant to be, we invite you to join the Order at orderofman.com.